Hello, figments of my imagination. I've made no secret of my obsession with Diablo 4 ever since the first beta weekend. While I never really got into the older games, something about the latest entry just hooked me. Flash forward 3 months, and I've basically stopped playing. So, what happened? I didn't finish the game. Hell, I haven't even reached World Tier 4 yet. The gameplay is still fun, and I even want to try out a few other classes. But every time I boot up my PC, I find myself playing something else. It took a week, but I think I finally figured it out. I'm already burnt out. Yep. Less than a week of playing and I just couldn't take it anymore. It all started to make sense when I looked back on what I'd been doing within Sanctuary. For the first few days, I enjoyed the game immensely. The main questline is fantastic, and progress through it feels good. I even enjoyed hunting down statues and the eye level grind that starts with World Tier 3. The problem came when leveling started to slow down. Multiple people had made it to level 100 at this point, most with around my playtime. Obviously, I was doing something wrong, so I took to Google to figure out just what I was supposed to do. And it turns out the answer was party up and grind normal dungeons non-stop. Now, I knew parties would have a slight advantage thanks to the XP buff for grouping, but that's only a 10% boost. What I didn't count on was how exactly XP sharing would work. Everyone in the party that's even remotely in the same area gets full XP for each kill. This means that perhaps the most efficient way to farm XP is to have 4 people split up in a dungeon, kill 1/4 of the monsters each, reset the dungeon, and do it again. This effectively turns the 10% XP buff for groups into a 300% buff, as each player is earning 4 times the experience they would have in the same time solo. Now, I want to be clear, I don't really have a problem with groups being faster at leveling than solo, that just makes sense. I do have a little bit of a problem with just how much faster it is in Diablo 4 though, mainly because it feels like the leveling pace is balanced with this fast rate in mind. The levels really start to drag on after 50, and I wouldn't be surprised if that slow rate is partially because of how good group XP farming is. As it stands, there isn't really a way to balance this specifically without a drastic change, like splitting the XP from each monster rather than awarding all of it to each player in the party. But rather than nerfing group-based dungeon spam, I think it'd be a better idea to significantly buff other methods of XP for the late game. For example, it's insane to me that nightmare dungeons don't award more XP than normal dungeons. It just makes sense that they should have some sort of multiplier tied to difficulty to make up for the effort required to clear them, perhaps with a significant boost for successfully clearing the whole thing. Cashing Ascenders and Helltides, or completing Whispers for the Tree could also give large XP bounties to make them a viable farming alternative. Basically anything to fix the current system, where the most efficient and effective way to level is to grind the same dungeon over and over again with a full party. Hell, maybe even an XP multiplier across the board that's inversely tied to group size. While I don't like the lack of variety for leveling options, I especially don't like feeling like I'm being punished because I want to play the game alone. I don't want to spend 160 hours playing solo to achieve the same thing as someone playing 40 hours in a group. I don't want to be forced to grind the same repetitive task like it's a second job just so I can eventually play the fun parts. And I sure as shit don't want to do any of that 4 more times just to try out the other characters. So, I stopped. And I don't think I'm alone. More people are hitting the endgame wall and seeing the slog that Blizzard is passing off as content. Don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy the game. That's what makes this whole thing so frustrating. I want to get to level 100. I want to see what my rogue plays like with everything unlocked. I want to try different and unique builds. I want to push high-level nightmare dungeons, and I want to take on the endgame version of Lilith. I want to do all of that, but what I don't want is the obnoxious, overly inflated grind to get to that point. I admitted early on that I'm not a veteran of the Diablo franchise, so maybe I'm wrong here, but I've always been told that Diablo is essentially a single-player game with some optional co-op. I also am not one to complain about a game becoming MMO light, but I've played quite a few MMOs, and never have I felt so forced to group up to level as I do in Diablo. And what makes all this group focus even worse is that there isn't even a good way to find people within the game itself to group with. You have to rely on outside sources like Discord or other online forums. How Blizzard thought that excluding a group finder while at the same time implementing multiple features to heavily reward group play was a good idea, I'll never understand. But then, I don't really understand why any of the other flaws with post-50 leveling I mentioned exist either. Anyways, that's the end of my Diablo rant. It's a weird feeling, wanting to play a game, but also being exhausted by the mere thought of playing it. I actually think a lot of my concerns will probably be fixed eventually, as it clearly benefits Blizzard to keep as many players playing as possible, especially once they start rolling out the battle passes. I'm also genuinely curious if any of the previous Diablos favored parties this much, specifically for leveling. So if you've played the old ones, please let me know. Otherwise, make sure to spite-like the video before insulting my opinions in whatever way you see fit in the comments, and I'll see you all eventually.